I was working a night shift at the warehouse. It was just me and my forklift, moving boxes. I've done this for 3 years, so I was used to the quiet. The rain started coming down hard. It was soothing at first. I could hear the drops hitting the roof, a steady rhythm that made the night feel cozy. After a couple of hours, I lined up a few boxes when I heard a tapping sound. It was faint, coming from the shelving. At first, I thought it was just leaks somewhere. But then it got louder. It felt like someone was knocking. My stomach dropped. I turned around but saw just shadows that I tried to ignore it, focusing on the boxes. But the banging kept coming back, echoing in the empty space. I felt uneasy. The quiet, mixed with the rain and those noises, made each second stretch. I glanced over my shoulder again. Still nothing. Just my mind playing tricks, I thought. But I didn't believe it. Hours passed, and I still felt that coldness in the air. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The rain poured heavier. The lights above flickered. I swallowed hard, feeling the tension in my chest. My phone buzzed, and I checked the time. My hands felt clammy. That's when I noticed the shadows again. They seemed to move closer as if something was lurking just out of sight. Then I heard a loud bang, and it made my heart jump. I looked around, my breath quickening. I thought I saw something shift behind the shelves. My thoughts raced. Was I just tired? I told myself I was alone. I grabbed a box, forcing my eyes to focus on my work. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure. It was just standing there, watching me. I froze. I couldn't say anything. I blinked, and then it was gone. Just the shelves and shadows. I felt a shiver run down my spine. My heart was pounding, and I wanted to run. I turned back to the boxes, trying to push the fear away. But that's when I heard a soft whisper, though I couldn't make out the words. Then came another bang, shaking the ground beneath me. I shook, fear gripping me. My feet felt glued to the floor. I wanted to look but didn't know if I should. I turned slowly, unsure of what I would find. The shadows had faded, but I felt that weight in the air, cold and heavy. The rain beat against the roof, loud and chaotic. I could hear the refrigeration units humming, but it all felt wrong. I picked up the radio, my hand trembling. My voice cracked as I called out, "Hello?" No answer came. Just eerie silence. There I stood, in that vast dark warehouse, afraid of what lurked in the shadows. That night seemed to stretch on forever. When my shift ended, I rushed out, hearing the rain wash away everything behind me. But now, I think about that night every time it rains. I wonder if I was really alone after all. I thought I'd left my fear behind when I stepped into the sunshine the next day. But I was wrong. That night haunted me, lingering like a shadow over my head. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had missed something important. Maybe it was all in my head, but the memory felt too vivid to ignore. I returned to work that afternoon, dreading the night shift. I tried to keep busy, focusing on the routine. I moved boxes and checked pallets, but my mind drifted back to those flickering lights and whispered voices. I kept glancing over my shoulder as if I might see the figure again. It never happened, but the unease clung to me. As darkness fell, I found myself trying to convince myself that it was just the storm, a normal storm with no secrets hidden in the shadows. But as the rain started up again, rolling in heavy against the roof, I felt my heart pick up its pace. Before I could even start stacking boxes, I noticed something strange. A box that had been securely packed earlier was now ajar. My breath caught in my throat. I could have sworn I hadn't touched it since I'd left. I approached it cautiously, glancing over my shoulder, hoping I wouldn't see anything waiting behind me. I opened the box. Inside were sheets of paper, but they weren't just packing material. They were old, yellowed, and crumpled, like someone had spent a long time looking through them. I pulled one free and could barely decipher the faded ink. My stomach tightened. They appeared to be drawings. And not just any drawings. They were sketches of the very warehouse I was in, but it was clear from the details that these were done a long time ago. Just as I was drawing closer to read, I heard the unmistakable sound again, a tapping, louder this time, coming from the shelving behind me. It was rhythmic and urgent, like a separate heartbeat echoing in the silence. I stiffened, the reminder of the last time I heard it flooding my mind. That I set the drawing down reluctantly and turned toward the noise. The shadows were shifting as if something was moving among the shelves. My pulse raced. I felt a pull to investigate but also a desperate urge to stay away. Then, there it was, a flash of a figure, darting from one shelf to another. I wasn't imagining things. Panic shot through me, it was real, and someone or something was in the warehouse with me. I grabbed the radio once more and shouted, "Is anyone there?" My voice echoed back, but no response came. Just silence wrapped around me like a cold blanket. That I took a deep breath, forcing my feet to move. I had to find out what was going on, but my instinct screamed at me to run. Sudden determination pushed me forward as I steeled myself against the fear washing over me. That's when I heard the whisper again, soft and insistent. This time, it was clearer, "Help me." My breath caught. I stood frozen in place. The sound sent icy dread slithering down my spine. I knew I couldn't leave now. Whatever was happening, I was in the middle of it. With a mix of fear and urgency, I stepped towards the shadows, ready to confront the unknown. As I stepped deeper into the shadows, the air grew colder. My breath came out in visible puffs. The whispers faded, replaced by the soft sound of droplets hitting the concrete floor, each drop echoing like a distant heartbeat. I squinted, trying to pierce the gloom. I turned my flashlight on, the beam cutting through the darkness. Just ahead, I saw movement again. My heart pounded in my chest. There it was, just a flicker, a figure darting between stacks of boxes. I couldn't tell if it was a person or just my imagination playing tricks on me. "Hello?" I called out tentatively, my voice quaking. No answer came, only the continued tapping somewhere deeper in the warehouse. Driven by a mix of curiosity and fear, I took a few cautious steps forward. With each step, I fought against the urge to turn back. The warehouse felt like it was closing around me, the shadows pressing in. Then, as I rounded a corner, I nearly stumbled over an old, rusted toolbox lying haphazardly on the floor. It looked out of place, like it hadn't been touched in years. Kneeling down, I opened it. Inside were worn tools and, strangely, more drawings, smaller this time. They depicted faces, ghostly and distorted. Was this the work of someone who had been here before? My heart thudded in my chest. The disturbing images seemed to come alive, each one exuding an eerie familiarity. Suddenly, the tapping grew louder, now sharp and staccato. I quickly glanced around. Something or someone was near. I tried to focus on the source of the sound, when a gust of wind whipped through the aisle, making the boxes sway. I looked up just in time to see the last of the figure slip around a corner. Panic surged through me. "Wait!" I yelled, my voice cracking. But there was nothing but silence in response. I felt the weight of dread settle into my stomach. Whatever this was, it made me feel like I was losing my grip on reality. I was filled with urgency, like the figure might have answers to the whisper, to the supernatural sense of being watched. Just as I steeled myself again, I heard it, a voice, faint but clear. "You need to get out." It echoed in my head, sending chills down my spine. I looked around frantically. There was nothing there, just the darkened aisles and cold metal shelves. With the message hanging heavy in my mind, I turned towards the exit. When the lights began to flicker again, this time more violently. I froze. Shadows twisted and danced, and I felt a pressure building in the air, something darker lurking just out of sight. Then everything went dark. I couldn't see a thing, only a suffocating darkness enveloping me. My heart raced, the pounding beating in my eardrums as I tried to steady my breath. I fumbled for my radio, but it was dead. Just then, I heard it again, a frantic banging, followed by a voice, desperate and echoing, "Help me." I was rooted to the spot, caught between the pull of fear and the need to understand what was happening. I needed to find a way out. But at that moment, I knew whatever was hidden in this warehouse, it was coming for me. I took a step back, my heart racing as the echo of that anguished plea faded into the stillness. "Help me," it had said. Was someone truly trapped here? The fear that rooted me in place began to shift, giving way to a desperate need to assist. I called out, "Is someone there?" My voice barely broke the silence, swallowed by the darkness. I strained my ears, listening intently. The banging resumed, now louder and more frantic than before. I moved toward the sound, the flashlight beam flickering uncertainly. Each step felt heavy, my pulse quickening with every noise I heard. I couldn't just leave. What if someone truly needed me? Navigating through the aisles, I felt my way along the walls. The shadows seemed to pulse with life, shifting and swirling as though they were alive. In the stillness, a sudden chill swept through me, bringing with it memories of the distorted faces I had glimpsed earlier. I shook off the sense of dread and pressed on. The banging intensified, the rhythm chaotic, almost pleading. "Please help." It was coming from somewhere beyond a stack of boxes. I rounded the corner, shining my light onto the source. My stomach dropped. There, wedged between forgotten crates, was a figure, a woman, her face streaked with dirt and desperation. "I'm trapped," she cried, her voice barely a whisper now. I could see the panic in her eyes. "Hold on, I'll help you." I rushed towards her, adrenaline sparking in my veins. But as I approached, something felt wrong. The air thickened around me, and a cold dread gripped my heart. I needed to be cautious. "Stay still," I urged. "I'll get you out." I grabbed the nearest crate and tugged at it, barely managing to shift it. But as it moved, I caught a glimpse of something behind her, a shadow lurking in the corner of my eye. I turned quickly, but nothing was there. "Please," she begged again, her voice rising in pitch. "I can't breathe." The shadows cast by my flashlight danced frantically, teasing my vision. I forced myself back to the task at hand, continuing to clear debris. With one last heave, the crate toppled over, creating just enough room for her to slip through. As the woman struggled to get free, she suddenly froze, her expression morphing from relief to horror. "No!" she screamed, pointing behind me. I turned, my heart dropping. There it was, a figure emerging from the darkness, tall and menacing. I couldn't make out its features, but its presence sent a surge of terror through me. "Run!" I yelled, and the woman scrambled to her feet. We dashed back the way I had come, panic propelling us forward. My heartbeat roared in my ears as we raced toward the exit, shadows clawing at our heels, but just as we reached the door, it slammed shut with a force that rattled the very foundation of the warehouse. I tried to push it open, but it didn't budge. The figure loomed closer, its outline blending into the dark, and I was overwhelmed by the realization, the whispers, the drawings, the voice, all were tied to this nightmare. "Get me out!" she cried, her eyes wide with fear. I turned to her, knowing I had to find another way. Through the chaos, a glimmer of hope sparked in my mind. There had to be another exit. "Follow me," I urged, pulling her back into the maze of shadows. Darkness closed in around us, but I wouldn't let it consume me. Not yet. As we ran deeper into the warehouse, I clung to the fleeting hope that maybe, just maybe, we could escape whatever horror waited for us in the dark. I pushed forward through the dim aisles, my flashlight scanning the towering shelves of boxes. I could hear the woman's breaths, sharp and panicked, behind me. We turned a corner, only to meet a wall of stacked crates. I quickly surveyed the area, searching for a way around, but the shadows felt suffocating, wrapping around us. "Where do we go?" she asked, her voice trembling. I didn't have an answer, but I couldn't afford to panic. The figure, a silhouette that reminded me of a predator, was still pursuing us, lurking just outside the reach of my light. "We need to find a door," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. I motioned for her to stay close. We picked up our pace as the air became thick with an oppressive silence, the shadows growing darker and more menacing around us. Every time I turned my head, I half expected to see that figure looming over us. I felt its presence pressing in, and it was maddening. The darkness was alive with hushed whispers, each breath jarring me further. "Over here." I pointed to another aisle, the beams of the flashlight creating a narrow path through the gloom. We rushed down it, only for the sound of something crashing behind us to echo in the quiet. I shot a glance back, heart racing in panic. Suddenly, my light caught something unnatural on the wall. I slowed my pace, scanning it closely. It was a series of crude drawings, a collage of faces twisted in agony, the same distorted expressions I had seen before, this time etched into the very fabric of the warehouse. "What is this?" I muttered, stepping closer. The designs were haunting, almost desperate. But just as I took a step forward, a low growl emanated from the shadows, making my skin crawl. I snatched my flashlight back and continued down the aisle, dropping the drawings from my mind. But the woman hesitated. "We can't leave until we understand." Her voice echoed with fear and something else. I turned to demand she hurry, but the immediate danger forced me to swallow down my frustration. "Look, I promise we can come back for answers," I said, shifting my focus back to finding an exit. I felt that pressure building again, as if the darkness didn't want us to leave. Just then, we spotted a door at the end of another long corridor. Hope surged within me. "There!" I shouted, grabbing her hand and sprinting toward it. The whispers grew into a cacophony, a chorus urging us to turn back. When we reached the door, I flung it open, relieved to feel a rush of air filled with the faint smell of rain. But as soon as we stepped through, the world outside seemed to blur and distort, the colors wrong. I blinked, trying to shake the feeling of unease, but it was too late. Someone stood in front of us. Not the figure from the shadows, but another person, pale and ashen with eyes wide in fear. "You shouldn't have come here." A chill ran down my spine. I opened my mouth to respond, but words failed me. All I could think was, what had I just stumbled into? As I stood there, frozen by the unexpected figure, the woman beside me gasped, "Who are you?" Her voice cut through the tension, and the stranger flinched slightly as if pulled from a trance. I'm just trying to warn you," he stammered, taking a cautious step back. I blinked hard, trying to make sense of his fear. "Warn us about what?" He opened his mouth as if to speak but hesitated, glancing over his shoulder at something unseen. "You don't realize where you are, do you?" His voice was shaky. "You need to leave. Now." My heart pounded. "We just came from there," I said, pointing back toward the door. "There's something in the dark." He shook his head violently, his eyes darting. "That's not just darkness. It's more than that. You can't go back." Confusion clawed at me. The warehouse had felt alive while we were in it, a presence lurking close. "Then what do we do?" I demanded. The stranger wrung his hands nervously, glancing at the rain-soaked ground before us. "You have to seek shelter somewhere safe," he urged. "There are places in this town. You'll be safe there." The urgency in his voice sent a chill down my spine. "What's chasing us? What did we disturb?" He swallowed hard, eyes glimmering with a mix of terror and desperation. "I can't say. If you did not heed the warnings, it might be too late for you already." Before I could process his words, a low rumble echoed from the direction we had just come. The air thickened, like a dense fog creeping out of the warehouse. I could feel it pressing in, suffocating. "Run!" the stranger shouted suddenly, his voice a mix of panic and urgency. In an instant, without thinking, I grabbed the woman's hand. We turned and sprinted down the street, the storm drumming on the pavement as the dark clouds loomed overhead. Rain soaked me to the bone, but my focus was elsewhere on the twisted shapes forming in the shadows behind us. I could hear the growls again, more distinct this time, rising to a fever pitch. They were haunting, echoing off the buildings like a dark symphony. I urged us to run faster, desperation fueling my every step. What was that man talking about? She panted beside me. "I don't know," I shouted back. The further we got, the more frantic I felt. "We just need to keep moving." We passed abandoned cars, their rusted frames silent witnesses to the storm. Yet just as we hit a corner, I spotted a flickering light a few blocks down. It was an open diner, the neon sign buzzing defiantly against the gloom. "Over there!" I yelled, pointing. "We can make it." But as we ran toward the light, I felt something shift behind us, a looming presence that sent a wave of dread crashing over me. I risked a glance back, my legs almost faltering. That's when I saw it. A shape, dark and larger than any human. It stood at the edge of the shadows, a formless mass with eyes that glowed an ominous red, fixed on us with predatory intent. An instinct screamed that it wanted to devour us. I turned forward, heart racing, and pushed harder. We sprinted for the diner, but the air felt thick with danger. Would we reach safety in time? Or was the darkness already upon us? The diner loomed closer. Neon light splashed across the pavement, dancing like a beacon in the tempest. I could barely hear the rain over the growls that chased us, each sound like jagged glass scraping against bone. My lungs burned, but I pushed on, pulling the woman with me. "Almost there," I shouted, my voice barely breaking through the chaos. Just as we reached the door, I slammed my palm against it, feeling the chill of metal against my skin. I didn't have time to process whether it would open, I needed it to. The door swung inward, and we stumbled into a dimly lit room that smelled of coffee and grease. I turned rapidly to look out through the glass. The creature had stopped just short of the diner's threshold. Its eyes glowed like coals, piercing through the night. I could hardly breathe. My gaze darted from the creature to the woman beside me, panic etched across her face. "Will it come in?" she whispered, voice trembling. "I don't know," I replied, voice hoarse. I backed away from the door, feeling the hard surface of a booth press against my back. "But we can't just stand here." A rumbling growl echoed from outside, seeping through the door, a warning that made my skin crawl. I scanned the diner, searching for anything that could help. There were a few customers seated at the counter, oblivious to the storm brewing outside. A couple of them were engrossed in talk, and an old man nursing a coffee looked up only briefly before returning to his thoughts. "Why aren't they reacting?" the woman muttered, her eyes wide with disbelief. Before I could answer, the lights flickered above us, casting eerie shadows across the room. The weather wasn't just affecting the outside, it felt like the diner was caught in its grip. One of the customers glanced my way, and I hoped to find a semblance of reassurance in his expression. Instead, what I saw sent a shiver down my spine. His eyes, much like the creature's outside, glowed with an unsettling light. "We need to get out of here," I urged, but just then, a violent shake rattled the building. "Did you feel that?" the woman gasped as she stumbled against my shoulder. "Yes," I snapped. But there's something more. Before I could finish, the old man at the counter leaned forward, his voice raspy and low. "You can't escape it, you know. It's already chosen you." My heart sank. The diner had felt like a refuge, but suddenly it felt like a trap. The growling from outside was met with a chorus of whispers that seemed to rise within the diner itself. I turned to the woman, panic rising again. "What do we do?" she asked, eyes wide and fearful that I didn't know. I was still reeling from our narrow escape and the strange happenings within the diner. Just then, the lights flickered again, and then everything went dark. We need to move. Now. I grabbed her hand and headed deeper into the diner, led only by instinct. I had no idea what awaited us in the shadows, but the creature outside wasn't going to wait. I could hear it pressing against the door, a deep thud resonating through the building. This was not over. The truth was still out there, and if the diner was compromised, then we had to find a different way. But what awaited us outside? I rushed into the back of the diner, dragging the woman with me. The distant rumble of thunder was nothing compared to the pounding of my heart. The kitchen was dim, illuminated only by the faint glow of a fridge light. The air was heavy with the scent of fried food and something stale. It was unsettling. "Where are we going?" she asked, pulling at my hand. I tried to ignore the panic in her voice. "Anywhere but here," I said, scanning the cramped space for an exit. The back door seemed like a possibility. It led to the alley, but I didn't want to think about what might wait there. I pushed aside a stack of boxes to reach the door. My fingers fumbled over the handle as I struggled to stay calm. One of the employees' jackets hung on a hook, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were intruding on something more sinister than just a diner. I pulled open the door, and a blast of cold air hit me in the face. "What if it's out there?" the woman whispered, visibly trembling. I stepped outside, using my body as a barrier. As I hesitated, I heard a scraping sound coming from the alley. My stomach dropped. Swallowing hard, I turned to her. "We can't stay in here." Before we could move, the lights flickered back on, illuminating the alley. That's when I saw it. A shadow slithering along the walls, darting from one spot to another like a wraith. My heart raced again, pounding noisily in my ears. "Did you see that?" I asked, looking back at her, but she was frozen, staring past me. I turned, and there it was, closer now, an entity that made no sound but felt like it could rip the soul from my body if I let it. "Get back!" I shouted. I pulled her into the kitchen again. The door slammed behind us, the impact reverberating through the building. My breath came fast, the fight-or-flight response kicking in. "What was that?" she gasped, eyes wide. "I don't know, but we need a plan," I said, trying to gather my thoughts. Unfortunately, as I glanced toward the kitchen's entryway, I realized we weren't alone. The glow from the diner showed a figure now standing by the door, our only way back into the main room. It was one of the customers. "Help us!" I yelled, but instead of the expected response, the man smiled. His teeth were unnaturally sharp. The other customers, too, were rising from their seats, a united front. Their glowing eyes were all fixed on us. "Did you think it would be that easy?" he said, voice low and gravelly. Panic surged through me as I realized the truth. The diner hadn't been a refuge at all, it was a trap, and we had walked right into it. An oppressive dread settled over me as I turned back to the woman. "Run!" I shouted. But the kitchen door had locked behind us, and we were trapped in this nightmare. I could hear the growls again, louder this time. I felt the walls closing in. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a window at the far end of the kitchen. It was our only option, but I needed to act fast. I nodded toward it, and we moved, my heart racing as I felt the air change again. Then, I heard the door creak open behind us. Someone was in the diner. And they had plans for us. I pushed the woman ahead of me toward the window, my breath coming in shallow gasps. The distant growls built into something more primal, resonating in my chest. I could no longer tell if the sounds were coming from the customers or something far worse. The window was old, covered in grime, but it appeared to be our best chance. I quickly grabbed the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I turned back toward the door, dread pooling in my stomach. The figure in the doorway had taken a step forward, and that creepy smile only widened. "Please, just let us go," I yelled, desperation crawling into my voice. My mind raced thoughts of escape, of safety, but it felt more and more like a distant dream. The woman clutched my arm, her eyes darting to the exit with fear etched on her face. "Don't panic," I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. I returned my focus to the window. With a quick heave, I yanked at the handle again, pouring all my strength into it. The wood creaked, but it wouldn't give way. Suddenly, the door behind us swung open fully, and I felt the cold brush of the outside air behind me. The customers moved closer, their forms now casting elongated shadows across the floor, dancing grotesquely in the soft glow of the diner's neon lights. "Join us," the man called, his voice smooth as silk but underlined with menace. "It's not so bad here, really." I didn't wait for him to finish. I turned back to the window and resorted to desperate measures. I braced my foot against the frame, pulling hard with both hands. The wood splintered, and finally, the window gave way. It pushed open with a loud crack, revealing the dark alley beyond that. I glanced back at the woman. "Climb through," I urged, but she hesitated, her face pale. "No. They'll catch us," she cried, her fear palpable. "Do you have a better idea?" I shot back, feeling the panic rise. The figure was stepping closer now. I could see it had more than just a wicked smile, there was something wrong with it. Something hungry. The woman took a deep breath. "Okay." She leaned forward, inching closer to the opening. "Now," I urged. Just as she began to crawl through, I heard a loud crash, the sound of something heavy hitting the floor. I turned around to see the man from the diner topple one of the kitchen's heavy metal carts, sending utensils clattering across the floor like rain on tin. The loud noise echoed, a jarring contrast to the tense silence we'd maintained until then. "Get out!" I shouted again, my voice strained. The woman scrambled through the window, and I followed, adrenaline surging through me. My body squeezed through the opening, and I felt the tug of someone's hand on my ankle just as I slid through. I hit the cold ground hard, rolling onto my feet. The alley greeted me with the smell of garbage and rain-soaked asphalt. I twisted around just in time to see the woman pulling herself into the alley. Before I could reach for her, the figure stepped through the window, leaning out into the night. The others still lingered in the diner, like shadows watching, waiting. Then I saw something glinting in the man's hand. A knife, strange and sharp, reflecting the alley's dim light. "Run!" I yelled, grabbing the woman's arm. We bolted down the alley, the sound of our feet pounding against the pavement our only assurance that we were still alive. The distant rumble of thunder roared again above us as the rain began to fall, a heavy downpour that obscured the sounds of whatever lurked behind. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we hadn't escaped yet, because now we had something far worse than those in the diner chasing us. We had to figure out who or what had set the trap in motion. The feeling of eyes watching us from the shadows behind grew more palpable with every step. The rain poured down around us, offering little comfort. My heart raced as we sprinted through the alley, slick with water and littered with debris. There was no time to look back, to wonder what horrors we had left behind in the diner. The heavy patter of footsteps echoed behind us, making it hard to ignore the sense of pursuing menace. My fingers tightened around the woman's wrist as I pulled her along. I wouldn't lose her now. "Where do we go?" she shouted over the din of rain, panic flaring in her wide eyes. I had no plan, only the instinct to move. The streets were foreign and dark, illuminated only sporadically by the flickering neon signs of shops struggling to stay afloat. "There." I pointed toward a small convenience store just ahead, its lights still on but flickering erratically. We darted across the street, our shoes splashing in puddles, a cacophony that surely called attention to our flight. But the looming shape behind us seemed to instinctively know where we were, its ominous presence ever nearer. We rushed into the store, hearts pounding. I slammed the door shut behind us, leaning against it, breathless. The clerk looked up, bewildered. "What is going on?" he asked, but I barely heard him. I could feel the weight of the darkness outside, swirling and threatening whatever we had stirred was still in pursuit. "Just, give us a moment," I managed to say, my voice strained. My eyes darted around the narrow aisles, scanning for anything that could protect us. The shelves were cluttered with snacks, drinks, and small appliances, but nothing felt like it would offer true safety. The woman and I huddled near the back of the store. "What if it finds us?" she whispered, glancing toward the glass doors, which rattled slightly as if responding to some unseen force that I strained my ears, listening. The rain crashed against the roof, masking the sound of whatever might be lurking outside. "I don't know. We can't go back out there," I said, even I didn't believe it. Every moment felt like it stretched on into eternity, the silence shrouded us in dread, and then, an ear-piercing crash resounded outside. I jumped. "What was that?" she asked, eyes wide. Without answering, I motioned silently for her to keep quiet. I could hear the breaking of glass, sharp and distinct, then the growl, a deep rumble that dripped with malevolence. From behind the counter, the clerk cursed under his breath, fumbling for the phone. But just as he picked it up, the front door shuddered violently, rattling against its frame. I reached out instinctively, my body poised for flight. "It's here!" I gasped. The clerk turned, his face paling as he dropped the phone, as he realized my words were too real. "Get in the back!" I shouted, and the woman grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the rear exit. The clerk hesitated, and as the creature let out a horrendous growl, he cried out in fear. The door burst open, a figure shadowed by the rain and chaos. I pulled the woman with me through the back entrance, urgency fueling my movements, sweat mixing with rain on my skin. We tumbled into a narrow alley, backlit by the neon ruckus of the store, the noise dissipating into the rain. The pounding heartbeats in our chests echoed in the damp air. I turned, looking at the woman. "We need to find somewhere safe." As we sprinted down the alley, desperate for escape, I could feel the darkness still pressing close. I glanced back and saw the distorted figure leaving the store, the others behind it beginning to stir, their eyes glowing in the night. "What are they?" she murmured, fear lacing her voice. I opened my mouth to respond, but I didn't have the words. It felt as if we were running from something ancient, something that called to the depths of the world and the deepest corners of our minds, that we turned a corner and ran into an old, abandoned building, its windows cracked but offering a sense of shelter. "In here," I urged, pushing through the door. It creaked ominously as we entered the darkened space. Inside, the air was stale, and echoes of the outside world faded into silence. It was nothing more than an empty shell, but it felt better than the dark things waiting outside. We stepped cautiously over debris, and I pushed the door shut behind us just as the ghastly growls echoed through the night. That we leaned against the door and slid down to the floor, both of us panting, soaked and trembling. I could feel every pulse of adrenaline fade, leaving behind only a lingering dread. "What do we do now?" the woman whispered, forehead resting against the wall, eyes closed, trying to catch her breath. The weight of the fear settled like a blanket over us. "We have to figure out what is going on," I replied, though I wasn't sure I believed my own words. I had no answers, only questions that spun like a hurricane in my head. "How?" she asked, desperation woven into her voice. I wanted to say something reassuring, but the truth was whatever had started this, whatever had drawn us into its web, it wasn't finished with us yet. That I sighed, the reality crashing into me. "I don't know. But whatever it is, it's tied to that warehouse, and to us." As she stared at me, perhaps seeking hope, I turned my gaze toward a broken window, the distant glow of the city lights twinkling like stars. The world outside seemed so far away, almost unreal in contrast to the horrors we had just encountered. "I still think about it sometimes," I admitted, more to myself than to her, my thoughts drifting. "I wonder if that place still holds its secrets, if those figures linger in the shadows, waiting? A silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken fears. I knew we had escaped something terrible, but in the depths of my heart, I also felt the weight of uncertainty. I didn't think we would ever truly be free of it. With nowhere else to turn, we would have to move forward even if we could never fully understand what lay behind us. The rain began to pelt against the broken window, the sound a constant reminder of the storm. I took a deep breath, preparing us to face an unknown future as we waited for dawn to break.